In addition, he has assessed numerous microbiologists and food scientists to the rank of reader and professor. Professor Odibo is not just about books, as some of you will be thinking now. He is also a traditionalist. His Keketu Okugo is popular with both the elite and the working class. And in fact, Okugo has vision now. FJC holds the chieftaincy title of Okamutawan of Obookwu Obizi Mbise. He is also Obong Ifyok of Akwa Ibom. Many more are incubating, many more shifting.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have listened to the citation, brief citation of Professor Odibo. We now present to you this man of the moment, a manufacturer of professors who has meritoriously, gloriously, and has had distinguished career in the public service, particularly in university administration, to deliver his valedictory lecture. Let us now drink from his fountain of knowledge. Professor F.J. Odibo.
Yeah, thank you, MC. The acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Joseph Ike Chebelo, the chairman of this occasion, Professor Emeritus Batu Ndubisi Okolo, OFR, a good friend of mine, principal officers of the university, members of the governing council of the university who are present here, the provost, College of Health Sciences, the provost, College of Postgraduate Studies, the deans of faculty and directors, heads of department, revered professors and other academics, professors emeriti of these universities, the clergy, the family members and friends, staff and students of this university and other universities here present, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, the slide first. Next. Yeah. That is a photo gallery. You can see Professor Odibo as a toddler. The next one, Professor Odibo, clutching to the hem of a gown of the mother. No, don't worry. And then Professor Odibo with his siblings when we were only 3. And the Professor Odibo as a bobo, a small bobo, with the the face cap. And Professor Odibo, with the immediate elder brother protecting me, but I will tell you in the course of the lecture when he abandoned me. Next. Yeah, midway. You can see Professor Odibo as a karateka and a kung fu expert. He has a green belt in karate and a brown belt in kung fu. And so when you see the meek and humble Professor Odibo, don't try him, he will put you down. And then at the end there, you see Professor Odibo when he was the toast of the ladies. Next slide. Yes, now Professor Odibo later days. You can see him as Obongi Fiok. Obongi Fiok in Akwa Ibom language means king endowed with wisdom. I don't know whether I am endowed with wisdom. And then you can see me as a traditional chief of my community and a member of Exe in council. Mr. Vice Chancellor, I am highly delighted to present to this august assembly my valedictory. After spending 42 years as an academic in Anambra State University of Technology and Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, please permit me to present to you my brief memo, which eventually led me into the microbial world. I was born in Eberi Omuma, Eche, in the present River State, to the family of late Sir Martin Chidi Odibo, Knight of St. John, and late Chief Lady Grace Ugoma Odibo of Umubu Kindred, Oboku Autonomous Community, Ezini Itembise local government area, Imo State. I am the third child of a family of 8 children. I attended St. John's Primary School, Catholic School, Umukrushi, for my primary education. Umukrushi is in the present River State of Nigeria. As a standard 1 student, or pupil rather, in 1960, I recall vividly the Independence Celebration 1960, which ended the British rule of Nigeria. I remember with excitement the pupils and the teachers brandishing the green, white, green flag of Nigeria and singing with gusto the national anthem, Nigeria, we hail thee. I hope we are hailing Nigeria. I started my secondary school education at Ascension High School, Eleme in Chia, in River State, in January 1967. But this was disrupted by the Biafra-Nigeria Civil War. At the end of the hostilities in 1970, I could not go back to River State because of the abandoned property policy of the that the government of Medford Okilo. And so, my parents decided that my elder brother and I should now school in Mbise. And so, he enlisted us in Ife Grammar School for us to complete our secondary education. The town Ife is 12 kilometers away from my home. And so, my elder brother and I trekked daily to Ife and back. That is making 24 kilometers daily to go to school. I wonder how many of the children now, if you tell them to go to Ikoka, they will hire shuttle. But my elder brother is here and he will testify. We walked 12 kilometers going to Ife and 12 kilometers coming back the same day. And the next morning, for 2 weeks. Until we found a hut, a thatched house belonging to an elderly bachelor. Then we were from where we eventually sojourned in his house to complete our secondary education. And in the Frederick Grammar School after the war, and I believe the older ones here must have had that experience, that after the war, most of the schools hadn't seats and lockers for students. And so most of us sat on the bare floor to take our lessons. I sat for the West African School Certificate examination in June 1973. And in 1973, that was the year WAEC had to change the calendar of their examination. Hitherto, examinations were conducted November, December. But for those of us who were in 1973, then WAEC changed, and in May, June, we sat for our examination. Unfortunately, that result was not released. The results, the WAEC results for the Aba zone and the Wiri zones in the then East Central State were seized and later on cancelled. But knowing that without a school set, I wouldn't make any headway in academics, I returned back to Ife and took the school start the second time in 1974 and emerged in Division 1. And the same year, I sat for the entrance examination as the man who gave my citation state to do my HSC program in Christ the King College, Onisha. And I did not complete my HSC program because in 1975, I passed the entrance to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, to study microbiology. But one thing exciting was that in my community then, whenever you pass entrance to go to a university, they consider you as going to Alabeke. And I was given a rousing send-off party for going to Alabeke, Nsukka. And I remember, and I still remember, that the solidarity the poor people of my community gave to me, people donating 3 pence or 3 kobo, maximum 50 kobo to somebody going to Alabeke. And my response during that party, I told them that I will not disappoint them. And I think some people, there are some members of my community here, and I want to ask you whether I have disappointed you. I don't think I have disappointed you. Now, curiosity led me into microbiology. I did not know what the discipline microbiology was. Although in my primary school days, our teachers told us in our hygiene lessons about germs that cause diseases. I could not conceptualize what these germs were. Being inquisitive, I asked my mother, my late mother, who was a nurse, what germs were. Mama compounded my confusion by telling me that they were invisible. I retorted, Mama, so they are spirits. And possibly to ease herself off from further questions from me, she said yes. And that heightened my fear for germs. At the end of Biafra-Nigeria war, there was a cholera outbreak in Nigeria, 1970 to 1971. My mother had re-established her maternity in my home since her maternity in Umukrushi, River State, had become an abandoned property. Her maternity in Mbise was a flourishing medical outfit in Mbise. And on Saturday, a relative of mine, the son is here. And I'm sure the son must be hearing this for the first time. This relative of mine, Dave Francis Okonko, was rushed to my mother's maternity, stooling and vomiting profusely. My mother admitted her into her little isolation ward. You can imagine that time my mother's outfit had an isolation ward, and so admitted Dave Francis Okonko in the isolation ward and instructed her ward mates to give him water, enough water, with salt and sugar. And they didn't bother to ask her whether she gave her any other medication. But eventually, Dave Francis recovered. And when he recovered and left, I asked my mother, what was wrong with Dave Francis? Why was he stooling like that? Why was he vomiting? My mother said he had cholera. And then I asked her, what is cholera? He said, a germ caused it, a germ. And the same time now, this time around, I started developing interest in germs. The first one, when she said they were invisible, I said spirits, and said yes, she said yes. I was afraid of them. But now, seeing what germs happened to my relative, I started developing interest in germs. During that cholera episode in 1970 to 1971, the news was agog that a Professor A.N.U. Njokobi, developed a vaccine, cholera vaccine, a vaccine against cholera. And the efficacy of that vaccine has been attested by World Health Organization. So when I heard about this, and mind you, I was in my second year or third year in the secondary school, my desire to study the germs started burning in me. As a class 4 student in 1972, I had a Furabe-trained biology teacher, Mr. Frederick of a blessed memory. He was the one who showed me what a microscope looked like. During his practical classes, he was using a simple monocular microscope that the source of light was just a mirror. You use a mirror and look for light, and then that gives you the source of light. He will demonstrate to us and show us paramecium, euglena, spirogyra, and the amoeba, and the epithelial cells of plant. Those slides, especially the amoeba, paramecium, spirogyra, were commercially made slides, and I don't know whether those slides are available now. One day I asked him, "Sir, whether one can see germs?" And he said yes, that one can see germs under the microscope. And then he asked me, "Why were you bothered about seeing germs?" And I said, "Sir, I want to know them." And he said, "Go and study microbiology in the university and you will know them." My notion about germs, however, changed during my higher school certificate program in CKC. I was a student of biology, chemistry, and physics. It was then that I realized that there are the good microbes, there are the good germs and the bad germs. But when I entered the university, I was constrained to study both the good one and the bad ones. However, I was fascinated by the lectures of two of my mentors, Professor S.K. Siobi and Professor Nduko Kafo, FAS of blessed memory, who taught us food microbiology and industrial microbiology, respectively. And so, I ran away from the bad germs. And when you complain, during the citation or people looking at my title, my microbial friends, yes, those microbes that impact on you, make you healthy, produce food for you, transform the nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen, into usable nitrogen for plants to use, they are your friends. And when you handle them well, why are they not your friends? They wouldn't harm you. And even the ones that can now harm you, you can also, modern science has done it in such a way that you can now also use the products of those bad ones in order to save life. My friendship with microbes. My final year undergraduate project was supervised by one Mr. Akauno. And during this period, coincided with the time there was this quest in Nigeria for a replacement of the brewing raw materials, hops, especially hops and barley. These are the imported components of raw materials used in making beer. And my supervisor gave me a topic that I should brew beer from cocoyam. And I did. I produced beer from cocoyam. Yes, people will start wondering, why can you produce beer from cocoyam? And the cocoyam I used, please don't think that it was a cocoyam used in a thickening soup. No. It was a Xanthosomas sagitifolium, the white variety, the one you can just boil and eat or put roast in fire and then eat. And so what is it in brewing? It's just raw material, starchy raw material, which you use enzyme to convert the starchy material to sugars, and then you can ferment. But this time around, I didn't play with the microorganisms, but rather I obtained the yeast for the brewing of this beer from Premier Breweries. So the yeast I used, I didn't tinker with it. The only thing I did was to propagate the yeast to have a large size or large inoculum to pitch the wort for the fermentation. The beer was consumed by my supervisor and my classmates who formed, I think Professor Obo consumed also. Yeah, because we were classmates. You must have consumed that beer. And yeah, they formed what do you call it, sensory evaluation panels. Now, for my master's, I didn't, after my after my national service, I decided to go back to the university. I believe that a man that is half trained is half knowledgeable and is half useful to the society. So after my youth service, I told my siblings that I was going back to the university. And they asked me, oh, you want to be a professor? And I say, yes, I want to be a professor. And from that day, they started calling me professor. And they spread like wildfire in my community that I had become professor. Whereas I had not started the journey. But I am happy that 16 years after that is from 1980 to 1996, I was able to consolidate that title, professor. For my postgraduate studies, my master's, I will tell you a story. It's a pity that my supervisor is unable to be here, but I'm sure that he is watching us online. As an undergraduate, My supervisor, Professor B, if you see him, huge, dark, Russian trained and German trained. You can imagine. These two countries we are afraid of. The Russians and the World War, the Germans and the World War. And this man trained in these two countries. So we were afraid of him. And in my final year, I was assigned to him for supervision. When I saw my name under his list, I ran away. I couldn't stand Professor Obi. I ran away and joined the group of Mr. Akauno, who gave me that topic on beer production. Obi did not quarrel. And when I applied for graduate studies, I was in Ondo State, and my admission letter came to me that I have been admitted into the Department of Microbiology to study industrial microbiology, and the supervisor, SKCOB, I said, God, this will be man again. I reported on campus, and behold, this man standing here, sitting here, JUJ, let them see you. The present acting DVC of Enugu campus of UNN. He was my roommate. He studied economics, and he was my roommate in Nkrumah Hall. And for 1 week, we were on campus. He had gone to see his supervisor. And for 1 week, I couldn't go to COB because of I was afraid. I was waiting for Professor Ndiko Kafo, who was on sabbatical in the US, to come back so that I will also run away and join his group. But he called me and said, no. Who is this Obi? That he will accompany me to COB in his office. And I couldn't say no. And he followed me. I went into Obi's office. Immediately I got there, he said, Odibo, I hope you won't run away again. And so you can imagine, how can I work with this man now? He said, I hope you wouldn't run away again. Eventually, I said, sir, that I wouldn't run away. And he said, okay, I will give you some reprints. Go and study these reprints. Come back the next day and know whether you can work on enzymes. I left. The next day I came and he told me yes. And I told him that I have studied the reprints and I think I can work. He said, okay. He had reagents for the study and that I wouldn't lack. And I must tell you, Obi not only gave me reagents and chemicals, he also paid me monthly stipend. In my studies, I worked with organisms that are heat-loving. These organisms, we call them thermophiles, thermophilic microorganisms, organisms that grow at high temperatures. And the one advantage of working with these organisms, or this group of organisms, is that you have a little risk of a contamination of your cultures, because most of the contaminants are mesophiles. So you can grow your organisms at high temperature and you still have pure cultures. And also, their products are heat stable the products they release into the environment are histable. And these organisms are usually used for industrial processes, especially in saccharification of starch, liquefaction, and saccharification of starch in industries. And throughout my studies with microorganisms, this group of thermophiles, I did not use conventional culture media. The conventional culture media you find, when I say culture media, please, I mean the medium in which you grow these organisms. I'm sorry, I am becoming technical, highly technical. I'm sorry. So I formulated my own growth media using local raw materials such as nitrogen sources such as soybean meal, soybean cake, blood, cow blood meal. You know, if you go to Quata, you can just collect the cow blood and then process it into dry powder, and you can use it as a source of nitrogen to grow your organisms. And then the carbon sources also, I worked with the locally available carbon sources. At times, even the non-edible carbon sources, but the microorganisms utilize them for growth. The organism I work with for my PhD is an organism known as Thermoactinomyces talpophilus. Thermoactinomyces talpophilus. I studied the nutritional conditions for the growth of these organisms, for the production of an enzyme, a type of enzyme known as pullulanase. Pullulanase. Pullulanase is, when you look at the structure of starch, starch has this is straight chains and then the branch chains. The straight chains contain what we call alpha-1,4 bonds. Then there is, at the point where there is branching, there is alpha-1,6 bonds. And so what the pullulanase does is to break the alpha-1,6 bond so that there will be complete hydrolysis of starch to sugars. And a typical example was the nutritional conditions for the production of this enzyme from Thermoactinomyces talpophilus. You can see on the table there the various nitrogen sources which I tried. But I tried them at 2% weight for volume. And you will observe that the pullulanase activity was highest with soybean meal. And the least activity was obtained with a chemically defined nitrogen source, potassium nitrate. The same table 2 there is, shows the influence of the carbon sources on the production of this same enzyme. And you found out that yam starch gave the highest enzyme yield, while pullulan, which is the substrate this enzyme is supposed to hydrolyze, did not induce significant enzyme production. And the graph there, yes, okay, yeah, this graph there shows the The time course for the production of this enzyme, when we talk about time course, you have studied the conditions for the growth of this enzyme and culture. You have optimized the cultural conditions, and so you now grow the organism under these optimized cultural conditions, and then know at what point the organism is producing the enzyme maximally. And so you can start your fermentation. If it is within 36 hours, you start your fermentation and go to drink beer. After 36 hours, you come back and you can stop your fermentation and harvest your culture. The Pulunanes we work with was highly thermostable.